Yeah, hi everyone. Everyone able to see my screen, right? And I'm also audible, right? Okay. So in our previous sessions, we saw the examples about inheritance. So we'll move to a concept called abstraction. It is almost kind of similar to inheritance, but in a little different way. Right? Uh, Let me check. Yes. Okay. So before starting, we all would have when I mean people would have studied the abstract concept. You would have studied like abstract is kind of an hiding the implementation. It's not kind of hiding, it's kind of providing an implementation in a different class, right? What I mean by implementation is like whenever you have some method, when you declare a method doesn't have any method body, then you don't implement anything inside that method, right? So whenever you have some piece of code inside that method, then that method will be executed. Then something will happen. If you don't have any piece of code within the method, when you just declare the method, then that is called just a declaration, not implementation. Okay? So a class itself can be declared as an abstract class, which can any class can have objects or methods, right? This abstract class can have a special type of methods called abstract methods. These abstract methods don't have any definition in the sense it doesn't have any uh, method body. So what we do, we extend this abstract class and we give the meaning of this uh, particular class inside the extended the class. I will show what is what I mean by that. So one more thing which we wanted to notice, like this abstract class cannot be instantiated. So when I say cannot be instantiated, we cannot create an object for an abstract class directly. We'll see that with an example also. So when a class will be declared as an abstract, right? This is the first point we have to note. And once you declared a class as abstract, we should have abstract methods in it. This is another point we have to note. And third point is like we cannot instantiate abstract class. So these are the three important points about an abstract class. And when we extend this abstract class, we have to give method definition for abstract methods. So we have to just remember these points, and abstract class or methods is kind of simple, right? We'll see that with the example. Let's close all this. Open the project. I'll clear this error out as well, and maybe I'll delete this package as well. We'll create new package. Let's give the package name as abstraction, right? And what I will do, I will just create a class, basic class initially. Let's give this class name like, let's say this class name is student. So if you see here, you have this checkbox called abstract, right? So when you check this inside this IDE options, which is given by Eclipse, what it will do, it will automatically create an abstract class for you, right? So what is the syntax for declaring an abstract class? We have to just add an abstract keyword in front of that class keyword. That's the only thing, right? So what I'll do, I just create a method here. I just have one method like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one more method like this. So now if you see, there's a major difference between the two things, right? What I have declared here. One method is just going to print something, whatever the method definition here. Uh, I can have whatever code I wanted to do within this method definition. But another method which I declared as an abstract doesn't contain any method body. This is a major difference, right? So what happens? I will create another class. Let's say this is student details implementation. Click on finish. What I will do, I'll just create two objects here. I'm going to type integer. I'll say student ID. I'll say student name, which is of type string, right? So what I'll do, I'll just create a constructor for this class. With two arguments. As usual, I'll assign these values to the objects which we created here using this keyword. right? Now what we can do, I will just extend this student class in this class, right? So now you see if it's throwing some error, right? What is the error? It must implement the inherited abstracted methods, right? So what our Eclipse is trying to suggest is like, hey, you have created some abstract class called student, and you have extended this class to through this class called student details implementation, but it contains some abstract method here which doesn't have any definition. What is your job? Your job is to give a definition for that method here, otherwise I will throw an error. So if Eclipse itself will provide some shortcut to add the unimplemented methods like this, add unimplemented methods I can do. So you can see it is overriding it, right? It is overriding the method declaration here, and it is we are going to give a new meaning for that particular abstract method inside the student details implementation class. Let's see. So what happens? I have overridden this method and have given new definition here. Let's test this out by creating a main method. As usual, main method can be anywhere, right? So I'm declaring the main method inside this student details implementation class. We'll test a few possibilities out, something like this. So if you can see here, right, since I've declared this particular class as an abstract, what it is suggesting that I cannot instantiate this object. So you cannot go and create an object for this abstract class, right? That's the whole point. If you wanted to do, you can do something like this. For example, Eclipse has suggested some code, right? You can create an object and you can override that method, whichever we declared as an abstract, and give the definition here as well. And once you do that, and if you give stu dot print details, then it will not throw an error. You should do something like this only. You create an object, you immediately override the unimplemented methods inside that abstract class, and then whatever you give here will be executed once you call this object, right? Apart, this is a way which we should or instantiate the abstract class. There is no other way that you can directly go say and say student an object name is equal new student. It's not possible, right? So I don't want to do this. Actually, I'll just delete this. So what we should understand is like I cannot do something like this, it will throw an error. So what I can do is I can call the constructor of the class which is extending this class, right? can call this, and I can give a ID and name. Let's say some random name, right? Now what I will do, I'll just print this method. We'll try to run this program actually. So now it is printed, right? Whatever it is here. We'll continue to see some examples, but any questions until now? I hope this wasn't confusing. Why we use abstract is that, what is the meaning of the English word abstract? It is something short which doesn't provide you that much clarity, right? It's very short, abstract. So what happens here is like we don't give any method definition here. So method definition will always be given by the class which is extending the abstract class, right? You can post it in chat. Any questions until now, or it is fine. Everyone there? Hello. Okay. Okay. I just got one reply until now. What about others? Anchal, Sakshi, Vinay.
You go to student class.
Okay.
So if we have to use print example method in student details implementation.
Yes, we'll try to do that also. This one, you're asking this one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. So it's printing. And you can override this method also actually. Let's say you can see, right, the overrided method is being printed. What happens again? It is a basic inheritance concept, right? We can extend the class, whatever method declaration is there or method definition is there, we can override that implementation, give the new definition here. And as we can see, it's Eclipse is throwing some message, right? It is overridden like that. To give more clarity, we can include this annotation also. And now if you print this method will be called whatever inside this, it will be printed.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So what I will do, I can have one more abstract method here. Let's have this method as a string return some string. So again, if we have add one more abstract method here, again it will throw error, right? This class will throw an error. So what we understand by this is, every time when you have an abstract method, you have to give a definition of that particular abstract method inside this class, which is going to extend it. We'll try to add this implementation here also. Again, instead of null, I will return some string. Some string. So I can go and create an already created object. I can go and call this. Sorry, you have to print this, right? So no, this is called, right? And what we can do, I'll just show something here. So I can declare this class also abstract, and I can extend this class also, and I can provide this implementation for abstract class in the newer class also. That is also possible, right? So once we do, I cannot go and instantiate this abstract class, right? So it's showing me an error here. So I just wanted to show that is also possible, right? We just clear this out now. What we'll do, we'll create another class. We'll call this student details 2. Again, we are going to extend this student abstract class. It will ask us to add the implementation. Now, what I can do, I can give different set of details here. Let's say we have given student ID and student name, right? Here we can say student, sorry, string student grade, and let's say, okay, string student email. So I'll create a constructor for this. Or I can right? So I'll print the student details here. right? We'll return something here. So our main method is here, right? We'll try to test this out. Maybe I'll put this main method at the bottom. So what I can do, I can give two different implementations of this particular student now here, right? As we saw in the previous example, I can say student, let's say first, okay, first details. I can say student details implementation. I can give student ID and student name. So now what I can do, I can just give student and second details. So what I can do, I can just call the second implementation, which is our student details too, right? So now let's say we give grade as grade 4 or email as xyz@gmail.com. Try to print those methods. So we are overriding all the methods from the student abstract class. We are giving the new definition, different definitions inside our student implementation class as well as student details too. We'll try to run this program. Now, two different implementations are there. Now these are run, right? So that is the main purpose of abstraction. There are two main purpose of abstraction. One is we can have the abstract methods here and we can override the abstract methods inside of the class which is going to extend it. I can give new definitions. I can run this program and I can, the definition which is given in the extended class, that is only going to run. And similarly, I can have n number of classes extending the same abstract class and give new definitions for that, right? I can have even have student details 3, 4, 5, 6, extend the same student class, and I can give new definitions by overriding these abstract methods and non-abstract methods. So in this way, we are achieving kind of a thing where we don't have to entirely rely upon the implementation which is given here in the student class. I can always override it inside this class which I'm extending, right? Because a student is a kind of a generic entity, right? But a student can have many sub entity. I'm just given an example like implementation student too, but it can have many sub entity which contains some details, and I wanted to override those details from the student class and give new definitions every time based on the implementation which I'm going to give in the subclass or the child class. Right? So that is where this particular abstract class is very useful. So are we clear until? Okay. So one more thing to note here is like this particular student abstract class, right? It can have abstract methods and it may not have abstract methods, and it can have something like this also. I can have an variable declared or object declared like this. I can have abstract methods like this. I can have non-abstract methods like this. What if I remove all these things and have only abstract methods here? What's the purpose of doing something like this? Obviously, our class will throw an error, right? Because there is nothing to override. Print example method we have deleted. Let's delete here also. So the purpose of doing something like this is we don't want to give any definition inside our abstract class. We can or we cannot. That is optional in abstract class. But what happens usually in abstract class is like we don't have to provide a implementation of any of the methods. We can just declare all the methods as abstract, and we can give all the implementations in our implementing class or extending class. That way what we are achieving is like 100% abstraction. We cannot create an object for this class, and we cannot um have any method definition or do something over here, because once you have some method definition here, we have to override it to give a new meaning here, and those kind of confusing things will happen, right? So abstract class is kind of used in kind of a rare scenarios. We generally for this purpose use something called interface. We'll see that in detail maybe in the coming sessions, but understand that if we are doing something like this, we are achieving something called 100% abstraction. 100% abstraction is generally preferred. We don't prefer using in abstract class. We prefer using that in interface. That is one thing we wanted to note, right?
Karthik, one question. For
Mhm.
abstract class, like, why are we using like abstract in our, matlab, what is the purpose of using abstract class? Like, why can't we do generally like defining methods in our main class only rather than defining on like abstract classes, different abstract classes, and then overriding them?
Okay, there may be some scenarios where your parent class is generic, right? I don't have to, for example, this is kind of a very normal print statement example. It's kind of, maybe it's kind of a wrong example, but there are many kind of real-time projects where you will work on certain areas where you have a generic parent class. Generic in the sense, you cannot give a method definition there itself. You have to extend particular class, and what you have to do, you have to create some methods here, and you have to override this abstract class here and give new definitions over in the extending the class, extends class only. Okay, maybe I'll just give a new example, maybe you'll understand better. uh, let's people usually have this example, right? People have this. Oh, it's kind of very simple example. Let's say. mm, okay. Okay, let's go with that example as well. I'm not getting currently. Right? So let's say there's a class called shape, right, which is an abstract class. So I have an abstract method here. Okay, let's give this abstract method as integer. Integer get number of sites. Right? Sorry, it should be abstract. So what happens here is, like, for example, let us have one more class called rectangle, which is extending this class, right? It will ask us to implement this. So rectangle has 4 sides, right? Is kind of very basic example. Maybe next time we'll come up with a better example. But understand that this is a purpose. Rectangle has 4. What I'll do, I'll just create one more class called triangle, again, which is going to extend this shape. So triangle has 3, right? So what, by declaring something called abstract method inside the abstract class, what we are doing, we are enforcing or we are making compulsory for our extending class to give a definition for this number of sites, right? Shape is a very generic term, right? We cannot uh, give number of sites for a generic term like shape. What shape can be anything. I cannot give a number of sites based on a one word called shape. Shape should be something, right? So we are giving implementation of the shape class in the form of rectangle and triangle, right? Now we will know, okay, rectangle has a definite solid shape and it has a number of sides as 4. Now we are returning 4 here, and triangle obviously 3. So now the same number of sites method has 2 different implementations, right? So now if we go and create a main method here, so when I say new rectangle and print this, so whenever it's a rectangle object, it is going to return 4. So if I try to run this, so based upon the implementation, we always get obviously we cannot instantiate something like this, right? I cannot instantiate new shape. I cannot do something like this, right? So you always have to give some implementing class for this abstract class. Based on the type of implementation, we'll get new definitions for the same method, abstract method, which we defined over here. Because this is one basic example, because number of sites you cannot define for a class called shape, but you are enforcing the extending class to give this definition number of sites compulsorily by declaring this as an abstract. So there are two purposes of doing something like this: to enforce your extending class a child class to give definition, and that definition has to be matching for the class which is implementing it. So these are the two important things. Anchal, right? Ask the question. So is it okay? Maybe I'll try to come up with a real-time example next class.
Can you please repeat the last line?
Okay.
Karthik?
Okay. There are two basic purpose of doing something like this. By declaring something an abstract method in an abstract class, you are enforcing this method to be implemented inside a class which is extending it. Right?
Yeah.
Because if I don't do this, if I comment this out, to throw an error. Hey, you have to implement this method, right? It's throwing an error, right? So if it is enforcing you to give a definition. So what in our purpose, in our project, in a real-time project, there may be many cases where you have to definitely implement some methods in our extending class, right? Otherwise it has no purpose for that. So to make sure that we are definitely implementing to have better programming practice, we can give it as an abstract method. So we are enforcing our extending class to give a new definition. That is one purpose. And what second purpose is, like, the new definition is kind of related to or will be matching to the class which is extending. For example, you cannot return 5 6. You can return, but doesn't make any sense for a class called rectangle. Rectangle can always have 4 sides. So obviously it is easy to identify errors at the runtime itself, because runtime error identifying is kind of a difficult task. But once you come up with the better programming practices, like giving an abstract class, overriding with overriding the methods, and you have to give meaningful definitions, right? Instead of returning for integer and 4, I can return string, and I can just say the number of sides for rectangle is 4. Maybe it will give even more definition for that, right? So if you do something like this, I'm defining this particular number of sites method depending upon the class which is implementing it. That is the second purpose, right? So the implementing class is rectangle, so only the value is 4. Implementing class is here triangle, so only the value is 3. So it is kind of enforcing me to give a proper definition based on the class which is implementing it. So in that way, we will have better programming practice. We'll have proper output at the runtime. It is less prone to errors.
Yeah, got it, Karthik.
Okay. Okay, I think that is all about abstract class. Maybe we'll see some. Maybe we'll think of some better example. Maybe just give me a minute. Okay, maybe I think this will give a better. I just close all these things. Maybe let's say I have an abstract class called let's say state, right, which is an abstract. What I'll do, I'll just have this state class method. I'll give a definition here. So assume that this class is states of India actually. So what I want to do, I want to enforce the implementing class to have its definition, but I always want these details to be implemented, like public abstract, let's say void print state details. So this print state details is a very generic term, right? Let's Okay, one more thing which I wanted to also show is like this method can contain argument also, right? Let's say the arguments are language and let's say right. So I can have something like this enforced in my abstract declaration itself. So that these two are mandatory, right? So now what I can do, I can just go and create another class. Let's say it's Kerala, right? Kerala, which is extending the state class. So obviously it will force me to implement that method, right? Okay. What I'll do is just print these two things. Similarly, I can have something, let's say it's West Bengal. I can copy paste the same thing. So I'll have my main method here. Say state1 is equal to new. So in the print state details, I'll pass the arguments directly. Maybe in the language, I'll say Malayalam. And population, I'll say 4 crore. Right? If you try to run this program, it's coming, right? Maybe I'll put a space here. And I'll create one more object. Let's declare this at Kerala itself. So we'll have a better programming practice. So we definitely know for sure what details to enter when we call this Kerala object and when we call this West Bengal object, right? It is kind of enforcing us to give proper details. It's kind of better programming practice, and we are having two different implementations. State is a very generic term for giving language and population, right? So we have to give implementation what state it is going to be, and we have to give the details, override the method and give the details inside this, right? Maybe it's kind of a better example. So always create an object which always give a proper definition for the particular class, right? So here it makes sense by saying that Kerala dot print state details. I can, okay, then I'll directly know what arguments to pass, or instead of hard coding these arguments, I can get it somewhere from a database or from a YAML file, something like that, right? So is that fine?
Yes, Karthik.
Okay. So we'll wrap up the session with this now. So if anyone has any other questions? Okay. Others? Varsha, Sakshi. All right. Okay. Okay, then I'm closing the session.